Well, I'm Jason Zevenbergen. I was in the U.S. Navy. I was active duty for 4 years. I was at E4. I was a third-class petty officer. Where did I go? I went to boot camp at Great Lakes Naval Station by Chicago, and then I went to Memphis for additional training, and then the rest of my service was in Jacksonville, Florida. I didn't think I was ready for college. And I don't know, I always felt like public service was really important in that you had to give back to your country for what your country gives to you. So, so I joined the service. Now I was still in high school. I was definitely still with my family. I think because it seemed adventurous. I wanted to be an aircraft carrier, and I wanted to travel the world. And neither happened, but that's what I was hoping for. Yeah, I still remember the recruiter picking me up. It was just before sunrise, and I remember waving to my parents as we backed down the driveway. And just before that, I had told my mom, don't worry, Mom, I'll be back one day. And I always feel guilty about it because I never was able to go back to visit. I mean, I would go back to visit, but I was never able to move back there. But yeah, so yeah, I remember that, and we went to the MEPS, the military processing place in Minneapolis, and then they drove me to the airport, and then flew to Chicago, and then you waited at the USO until your unit got picked up and brought to the base for boot camp. No, I wasn't nervous until your commanders came to pick you up to go to boot camp, and then the tenor of things changed. Well, as soon as they pick you up, the goal is to start breaking you down. So it's really a psychological game, and they're not there to be nice to you, kind of thing. So, yeah, and yeah, I mean there's a lot of yelling and belittling and that sort of thing. Yeah. Well, the first night they keep you up late and get you up early. So we probably, you end up in this temporary barracks. You go to sleep. The first night we went to sleep 1 or 2 in the morning, and then they got you up at 4 in the morning by throwing a trash can down the rows, and you're up, and the first thing they do is go and get your hair cut, kind of thing. But yeah, so that was day one. Well, they're not nice. They're not there to be nice to you. But I don't say they're harsh either. Again, the goal is to kind of remove what it was like to be a civilian and train you to be in the mindset of being in the military. So, and yeah, so the very, the demeaning or belittling isn't, I guess, quite the right word, but it's very much, the goal is to intimidate you and to really challenge you, to press you. Well, I guess a basic day is, you wake up and you have about 5 to 7 minutes to shower and get dressed in uniform, and maybe another 3 or 4 minutes to make your bed. And in the Navy, everything is about attention to detail. So you had to make your bed in a very specific way, and if they came by to check to see if your bed was, you had to have your sheets tight so they'd actually bounce a quarter off your bed, and it had to bounce a certain height. Everything in your locker had to be folded a very specific way, and they would take the clothes out of your locker to make sure they were folded that way. So everything had to be very precise. And that was really the theme of a lot of my training, just precision and attention to detail. Because in the Navy in particular, and I'm sure it's true in the other branches, people's lives depend on that kind of attention. So it's really important. So that was the start to the day. So a lot of really just kind of frenetic energy at the beginning, and then you might do some marching drill at the start after that, and then breakfast, and again you only have like 15 minutes to eat, and then again those sorts of things during the day. In the Navy, it was, you're not learning how to shoot weapons. You're learning how to put out fires, or
Yeah.
you had training where they put you in a, it's kind of scary to say, but they put you in a gas chamber and you had to practice putting gas masks on, and they'd actually fill it with gas, and so those things can be kind of scary. But yeah, a lot of it is like teamwork and team building sorts of activities, and then, the day would go on like that. After boot camp, then I went to Memphis, Tennessee for probably 9-10 months for training. I became an aviation electronics technician, so most of my training for that was there. So basically, it was electronics school. Mm-hmm. After that, not so much. It was really like going to school. You still get up early. I think classes started at 5 a.m. and that sort of thing, and you still had watch duty, but you didn't have the big barracks like you had in boot camp. It was more like a college dorm sort of building, and you didn't have all the drills and that sort of thing, and you could wear civilian clothes at that point. Because before then you had to wear your uniform even out in town. So when my parents came at the end of boot camp, I was able to go to like a Brewers game, but you still had to wear your uniform. Mm-hmm. You didn't have civilian clothes even to wear. But so that was probably the most distinct changes. I could actually wear regular clothes again. After when I wasn't on duty.
Yeah.
No, it was all about school. That was your job, and then you had watch duty and that sort of thing. But the goal is to. For me, it was to become an electrician. Mm-hmm. So it was like any school. I went to school at like 5 in the morning, and it probably went till 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon. So I guess it was really intensive electronics school. Little break for lunch. After that, at the end you get your orders. So my orders were to go to Naval Air Station Cecil Field in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was attached to the airbase itself, so I wasn't attached to an aircraft carrier or anything. So my duty was to support the aircraft at the naval base. I was just on the airbase, so it was really a job. I worked nights for the most part, so during the day I actually ended up taking college classes at community college in Jacksonville. Really one of the reasons why I went in the Navy, to help pay for school. So while you were in the service at that point, they paid for 75% of your school, so I paid for 25% of it plus my bonus, so it was pretty nice, yeah. Well, I was an aviation electronics technician, so we supported the F-18 squadrons attached to the base. So these squadrons, when they weren't at sea, and most of the squadrons were attached to aircraft carriers, not in Jacksonville, but in Norfolk. So while they were at our station, then we did the electronic support. So we would get the circuit boards and that sort of thing. They were already taken off the aircraft, and then they'd come to our shop, and we had big computer systems that tested them, and computer systems, the size of these chalkboards behind us, they were really quite large. To see if they would have been pulled off to see, because they would fail a systems check, and then we would run them to see if there was something wrong with them, and then actually repair them in the shop and then send them back. Well, I was there for my whole duty. It changed in the middle of my duty. We had the Persian Gulf War, so that kind of changed things a little bit. Most of my friends had to go off to the war. I didn't, because I was attached to the station. So what changed for me is, before then I was taking classes at the community college, but once the war started, then we went to 12-hour shifts. So I went from 7. My shift was from 7 at night to 7 in the morning, and then it was just pretty intense. That was.
Was it hard, like the start of the war? Do you think?
It was strange. I remember it was kind of surreal, because I was watching the start of the war, and CNN was a little bit different then. It was still a new news company. And I remember sitting in the apartment with my friends, watching the start of it, and then my friends a few days later went off on the aircraft carrier out to where the war was. So, and then my mom was really scared that I'd have to go, and if it had been a prolonged conflict, I would have gone. Like when there was a fear that it would evolve like it did the second time we went to Iraq, where we would be there an extended period of time, and then I would have had to go. And then they would have moved our whole base to Saudi Arabia or to Iraq, and that was the fear on our base, that we would actually be deployed there. No, it changed a little bit. Like I said, we worked a lot longer hours, and then the equipment that we got back was a lot more damaged. So, I mean, just kind of the tasks we had evolved in that way. They're more difficult because, they're just, things were, I don't know, more challenging to fix. So, and there was more of it. Yeah, I mean, it was really before you had internet and Skype and, there's nothing like that. But, in boot camp it was different. In boot camp you had like 5 minutes where you could talk to your family, and maybe it was a little longer, maybe it was 10, but you had these phone booths, and sometimes I couldn't get a hold of, it was just on the weekend. You just got to talk to your parents once a week, and so Saturday you'd go on your allotted time, and if my parents were there, and then I'd call my grandparents, so I had somebody, I was able to get a hold of somebody. But besides that, it was just letters, and you just wrote each other, and sometimes mom would send you cookies and that sort of care package kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess your memorable experiences are with your friends, so it'd be at the beach throwing frisbee with your friends, or scuba diving, snorkeling and that kind of thing. Those are the experiences that you always remember. It was that, and I don't know if you still can, but we could drive our cars out on the beach, and we spent the whole day there. It was really nice. Yeah, most of them. Because I was unique in that I was attached to the air station and not to a carrier. So when the war started, all my friends left, and then they were gone for 9 months, and that was pretty hard. Some of my friends were recently married, and they had to sell their houses, or their wives were pregnant and their kids were born while they were gone, and they literally missed the first year of their kids' life. And, so things like that were hard. You don't really get to see your officers. At one point I had a duty where I worked on the quarterdeck of the base, which is the main office, I guess the main office area of the base. And so then I worked with the captain of the base and that sort of thing. And he was really an approachable guy. I had a lot of respect for him. But besides that, you don't have a lot of contact with the officers. Most of the officers on our base were pilots, and and they had their duties, we had our duties, so there not a lot of overlap. The only time that we had officers really coming through our space is if they wanted a tour of, we were in not just anyone could come into our building, you had to have a security clearance to come into our building anyway, so it's not like just your regular officer, your regular enlisted people were coming through to begin with. So. But if someone wanted to see what we were doing and they had access to it, they had clearance, then they could come through. And so we had some of that. But besides that, you didn't really have a lot of contact with officers. It was more contact with technicians, which they were either petty officers like us, or they were civilians. Yeah, I'm still in touch with one of my friends. Well, I guess suppose two of them. One lives in Atlanta, and my wife's friends with his wife, so just by chance, and so I still talk to him a little bit, but I have one good friend yet. He lives by Syracuse, and I have an opportunity to see him once in a while. He stayed in after I did, in the reserve, so he's now a chief petty officer and is about to retire. from the service, yeah. But yeah, so it's nice to see him once in a while. Well, it doesn't. Well, you have to do all this paperwork stuff, the separation work, and then you turn in your base pass. So you basically. I think in the end they scrape off the sticker out of your windshield, so you can't come back on base, sort of thing. It's that sort of separation, and then that's it. Yeah, there's no ceremony. The celebration is one that you might have for yourself. Yeah, I do, very much so. I wasn't married to her yet, but my wife was going to college, graduate school on Long Island, and she took the train down to meet me, and I had this old pickup truck, and then and I had my dog, and she met me, and we drove up. Well, we didn't drive back to Long Island. We drove to my parents first, but yeah, it was a hot summer day. It did. Yeah, it did feel weird. Because, being in the military is really unique in terms of an experience. There's nothing like it. And it was a little bit strange, yeah, I have to say. So even though, like when I was attached to the air station and lived out in town, I mean, you kind of are in the civilian world, but you're always still part of the military, and you can be called to duty at any point and called to base at any point for any emergency. And there's an understanding that you volunteered to give your life for your country, and you can be called upon to do that at any moment. And I think that always changes you. So afterwards, when that isn't like an immediate factor, that really there's some awareness of that. I always feel proud that I serve my country, and I guess I think that was the best part of it. I don't take the freedoms that we have for granted, I think, because of that. And I really respect the people that go and serve now a great deal, and have an appreciation for the sacrifices that they've given our country. And they think in a way that I think it's hard for the average person, the average citizen to appreciate. I got the Navy Good Conduct Medal for 4 years of honorable service, and then I have the National Service Medal for serving during national conflict. Well, I think the strange thing is that you have a sea bag full of uniforms that you don't have to wear anymore. That you don't have to get your hair cut in a certain way anymore, and so I think aspects of life like that. It was, still both there because your hair is still really short and those uniforms are still with you. So it's that, that transition period that, is still part of your life, but not part of your life anymore. And part of you, I suppose, is nostalgic, but, it's nice to leave behind, I guess, at that point. Because you're excited, it's the next part of your life. So I didn't know what to expect. I felt like I did at the start of the Persian Gulf War that it was probably not a good decision, and I thought it was taking for granted the people's willingness to put their lives on the line, and I felt that more so as the war went on. I remember even before the Persian Gulf War started, war just doesn't start and then people go off to war. There's months before the war starts. Your friends are leaving, and there's a lot of preparation, lots of rumors and unsettledness, and I know when the Iraq War started that those same kinds of things are happening. People are saying goodbye to their wives and their children. So, yeah, I don't know. So there's a lot of trepidation in terms of how things go, and war is always unpredictable. And if someone tells you that it is predictable when you get a plan, you know that they're not being truthful, because it's just not that way. Yeah.
It's kind of a shock. Like,
Yeah, and you know, people ask me what I did in the service, and I was like, oh, I fixed, you know, heads-up displays on fighter aircraft, fighter attack aircraft, and it just seems disconnected from being the English teacher and teaching French.
It's funny though.
Yeah, I never regret going in the service. I mean, it seems like a really, at this point in my life, almost a different life. You know, it's a long time ago, and it seems strange to me at this point that I was even in the service. But I never regret it. I'm really glad that I was in the Navy, and I'm really glad that I served.